For centuries the Galactic Council lived in pride and comfort, believing they were the strongest power in all known space. They controlled every law, every weapon, every rule, and every species. They decided what technology was allowed and what technology was banned, and they forced every planet to obey without question. They said teleportation was too dangerous, they said railguns were too destructive, and they said humans were the greatest threat of all, so they erased the human name from history books. They destroyed every record, and they told the galaxy that humans were extinct, gone forever, never to return, and the younger species believed it because the council never lied, not in public and not in front of their grand halls, but deep inside their arrogance there was a fear, a silent old fear, a fear of a species that once stood tall and strong, a species that did not kneel, a species called humanity, but no one spoke about it anymore until one quiet night, a night that changed history forever. The Council was in session inside their massive capital station, orbiting a shining blue star. The halls were calm. The leaders spoke in bored voices, arguing about taxes, trade and territory. Nothing special, nothing dangerous, nothing that mattered to the common worlds outside. But then all at once every light flickered, every screen glitched, every scanner froze, the room fell silent. No one knew why. The guards looked around, confused. Technicians hit buttons trying to fix systems, but nothing responded. It was as if the entire station had stopped breathing. Then a sound echoed through the chamber, a single alarm, sharp and cold. Unknown object inbound. The council leader laughed, thinking it was a system error, but the alarm repeated louder, unknown object inbound. Then screens flashed with a blurry shape, something massive, something metallic, something approaching fast. The council members leaned forward, confused, because there was no engine signature, no heat, no ID, but still the object moved, and the station scanners could not understand how, because all ships left trails, all ships used power, all ships showed data except this one. This one was dead silent. One commander shouted to raise shields, another shouted to call the defense fleet, another shouted to demand identification. But before any command was completed, before any logic returned, a massive shadow slid into view outside the station windows. One look was enough to fill every alien heart with cold fear. Because the object was not debris, it was a warship, black, silent and enormous, drifting like a ghost through space. No lights, no communication, no visible weapons, just a massive armored hull gliding closer and closer and closer. The defense ships rushed in, forming a perimeter around the station. They scanned again and again, but still nothing, no engine, no life signs, no records, as if the ship did not exist. The council demanded answers, but no one had any. Then the ship stopped, perfectly still, facing the council station like it was staring into their souls. A silence heavier than gravity filled the galaxy for 5 long seconds. Then boom, a single railgun shot launched so fast that sensors barely detected it. The shot tore through 3 defense ships in a straight line, slicing them apart like paper. The explosion shook space, debris scattered, alarms screamed, officers panicked, and every leader in the chamber stood frozen in pure terror, because no alien empire had railguns like that. No empire had that kind of power. No empire could destroy 3 ships with 1 shot, and in that moment every council member felt something they had not felt in centuries. Fear, real fear, the kind that crawled under the skin, the kind that reminded them they were not invincible, the kind that whispered something deadly is here. Before anyone could react, the cameras zoomed in on the warship's hull, trying to read its markings, and when the image cleared, every voice in the chamber died. 3 simple words were written in bold metal letters: property of Earth. The room erupted. Some leaders screamed, no, that's impossible. Others shouted, humans are extinct. Others cried, humans cannot return. But no one believed their own words, because the truth hit them harder than the railgun. Humans had returned. The species they feared the most, the species they erased, the species they betrayed was back. And they were not weak, they were not broken, they were not asking, they were announcing themselves with a gunshot more powerful than anything seen in thousands of years. Panic spread like wildfire. Orders clashed, fleets scrambled, more ships rushed forward trying to contain the unknown warship, but the black vessel did nothing. It did not move, it did not speak, it did not fire again. It just floated silently, watching the council, watching the galaxy like a judge waiting for a verdict. Some council members whispered, maybe it is abandoned, maybe it is unmanned, maybe it is a relic, but deep inside they knew the truth. No empty ship fires a perfect railgun shot, no mindless machine aims with such deadly precision. Someone was inside, and that someone was human. Messages bounced across the galaxy in seconds, spreading through every world, every colony, every empire. The rumor hit like a storm: humans are alive, humans have returned, humans have weapons beyond understanding. Some species cheered, others trembled, others prepared to flee, but everyone watched the council. Because the council had always promised that humans were gone forever, and now that promise was broken. Inside the chamber, the Supreme Chancellor tried to regain control, shouting that they needed to open communications, that they needed answers, that they needed to know what humanity wanted, but the communication channels were dead. Every attempt failed, as if the human ship was blocking all signals. Then another terrifying discovery stunned the council even more. The warship had no engines glowing, no Fuel burning, no thrusters firing, it was moving and positioning without any visible propulsion, as if space itself carried it, something impossible, something forbidden, something beyond council technology. The council members who once laughed at the idea of human power now trembled because the silent ship had already proved one thing: humans did not return weak, they returned stronger and smarter than ever. Scanners kept searching, trying to understand the ship's structure, but they found something worse than any weapon. The metal was not standard alloy, not known material, not anything in their archives. It was something new, something unbreakable, something that made the Council's greatest warships look like toys. And still the ship did nothing. Only one railgun shot fired, only one message written, property of Earth, and that silence was more terrifying than attack, because an enemy that does not speak is an enemy that does not fear. The Council leader whispered a question that no one wanted to answer. If humans survived, what else did they build? What else did they hide? What else were they prepared to do? No one responded, because the truth was too heavy to speak. The fear grew heavier with every passing second. Then, without warning, the warship rotated slowly until its front cannon aligned directly with the capital station. Every soldier grabbed their weapons, every commander shouted for shields, every leader braced for death. The railgun charged, glowing with faint silent energy. And in that moment the Council understood the full terror of what was happening. They were no longer the strongest force in the galaxy. Their rule, their pride, their arrogance, their control was shattered, not by a fleet, not by an empire, not by a war of thousands, but by one ship, one shot, and one name. Earth, the galaxy's greatest secret, had returned, and this time humanity was not here to bow. Humanity was here to be seen. Humanity was here to be feared. Humanity was here to change everything. And as the railgun hummed with deadly power, the Council realized that the age of their rule was ending and the age of humanity was beginning, and there was nothing they could do to stop it, because the message was already clear. Railguns came first, teleporters would come later, and the shock of that truth would destroy the Council's glory forever. The railguns stayed locked on the capital station, and in that single moment every heartbeat inside the Council felt like thunder, because no one had ever seen a weapon held so steady, so silent, so confident. It was like the ship itself was breathing calmly while the entire galaxy suffocated in fear. Commanders shouted orders, but their voices shook. Shields up, weapons ready, fleets deploy. But even they knew it was useless, because if one railgun shot destroyed 3 ships, then a second shot could destroy the station, the Council, and maybe the system itself. The chamber filled with trembling voices. Some leaders begged to surrender, some demanded to attack, some cried that this must be a nightmare, but no one could hide the truth. They were powerless. The same rulers who once controlled every species now stood like scared children, and for the first time in centuries they felt small, weak, fragile. Then across the galaxy defense fleets responded, rushing toward the capital, thousands of ships, engines burning, bright alarms echoing through space. They came in tight formation, hoping that numbers would protect them, hoping that bravery could replace power. But when they arrived, they saw it too. The black warship, motionless, enormous, deadly, its metal markings reflecting starlight, property of Earth, and the crews inside those ships felt chills, because they had heard stories, old forbidden stories about humans, stories whispered in fear, stories about a species that never surrendered, a species that fought with fire and iron, a species that made weapons no one else dared to build. Many thought those were myths, legends to scare children. But now that ship made every legend feel real. The fleets locked, weapons aimed, missiles prepared, torpedoes charged, lasers ready. The commanders waited for a command from the Council, and the Council leader whispered one desperate word: fire. Storm of weapons launched from thousands of ships, missiles streaking across space, lasers firing in blinding lines, torpedoes spinning toward the target, the sky filled with deadly light, every weapon meant to end the human threat forever. The chamber watched, screens shaking, hands held breath, praying they were not too late. But then something impossible happened. The human ship did not move, did not dodge, did not shield. Instead, all the weapons curved away, missing by inches. Missiles drifted off course, lasers bent aside. Torpedoes spun into empty space, as if the human ship was not just invisible to sensors but untouchable. Weapons programmed with perfect aim suddenly acted blind and stupid, crashing harmlessly into the void. Commanders panicked, checking systems, recalibrating, re-aiming, firing again and again, but every shot missed, like the ship was surrounded by invisible hands pushing everything away. Fear turned into horror, because no alien technology anywhere in the galaxy could do this. Nothing could distort aim. Nothing could break targeting systems, nothing could make an entire fleet useless. The Council stared wide-eyed, realizing they were fighting something beyond their understanding, beyond their rules, beyond their power. Some officers whispered maybe the humans hacked the targeting, maybe they jammed the systems, but the older Council members shook their heads, because deep inside they remembered something ancient, something they erased from history. Humans were engineers unlike any other species. They innovated, they experimented, they broke limits, and they never feared danger. The Council had banned human technology not because it was weak, but because it was too strong, too unpredictable, too powerful. And now that forgotten truth returned like a ghost, the fleets tried to retreat, engines roaring, but nothing moved. Thrusters powered up, but ships stayed frozen, stuck in space, like something held them in place, like gravity itself obeyed humanity, terrified. Voices filled the comms begging for help. Begging for escape, begging for orders, but there were no answers because every leader in the council chamber was frozen by a deeper terror. What if the humans were not attacking? What if they were only showing a tiny fraction of their strength? What if this was only a warning? The human ship slowly rotated again, railgun adjusting, not firing, just reminding the galaxy that it could, and that silence was more violent than any explosion. One young council member broke down, crying, whispering, "This is punishment." Another trembled, saying humans should not exist. Another shouted, "This cannot be real." But no matter what they said, the truth stayed heavy. Humans survived, and they returned stronger. The panic spread to every planet under council control. Riots erupted, news screens flashed with terror, families hid in shelters, leaders locked themselves in bunkers. Some species began evacuating their worlds, fearing humanity would wipe them out. The galaxy that once mocked humans now choked on the fear of their comeback. Inside the chamber, the Supreme Chancellor slammed his hands on the table, voice cracking, begging anyone to contact the ship, but communications were dead. Channels, silent, signals blocked, no response, not even static, just emptiness, like the ship refused to speak, refused to negotiate, refused to acknowledge their authority. And that silence cut deeper than a weapon, because to the council silence meant one thing: humans did not see them as equals. Humans saw them as guilty. The fleets outside struggled desperately, engines overheating, systems failing, panic overwhelming every soldier. Many started praying, others tried to send messages to their families, their last words. But then an even more terrifying discovery hit. Analysts realized the human ship had not used teleportation, had not used warp, had not used any known travel system, yet it appeared instantly near the capital station, meaning somehow it crossed light years. Without movement, without time, without warning. Something more advanced than anything in the galaxy, something the council had banned long ago because it belonged to humans. Panic turned into despair. The council felt the crushing weight of regret, because centuries ago they thought erasing humans would make them safe, but all it did was create a monster of their own fear. They thought they destroyed humans, but instead they forced humans to become something unstoppable, and now humanity stood on their doorstep with the quiet patience of a predator that had waited too long. The chamber fell silent again, as every leader realized a horrible truth: they were no longer rulers, they were prey, and the hunter had finally returned. The warship dimmed its railgun, the glow fading, not because it had mercy, but because it did not need to fire anymore. The council was already broken, their fleets useless, their pride shattered, their power crushed by fear alone. And in that crushing silence, the galaxy learned the first lesson of humanity: humans did not need 1,000 words to declare war. Sometimes one shot was enough to make the universe tremble. Sometimes one ship was enough to break an empire, and sometimes silence was the loudest threat of all. And this was only the beginning, because the humans had said nothing yet, and when they finally spoke, the galaxy would never be the same again. The silence around the black warship felt heavier than gravity itself. The fleets were frozen, the council was trembling, and every living creature watching across the galaxy felt a pressure in their chest, like the universe was holding its breath. Then, without warning, every screen, every hologram, every comm channel flickered to life, not with images, not with warnings, but with a single heartbeat sound, slow, deep, human, the kind of sound that made every species feel something ancient, something primal, something they could not explain. The chamber shook with that echo, and suddenly a voice broke through, calm, steady, emotionless, a voice that belonged to no alien species, a human voice. It spoke only 3 words at first: "We warned you." The room went dead silent. Some council members collapsed into their seats, others stared in shock, because they knew that voice did not come from any recording. This was live, real, present, and that truth alone made fear crawl like ice through their veins. The voice continued: "You erased us, you hunted us, you lied," and every word hit like a blow to the heart, because deep down every older council leader knew it was true. Centuries ago the council labeled humans dangerous, unpredictable, uncontrollable. They feared how fast humans learned, how fast they built, how fast they evolved. Humans pushed boundaries, ignored limits, invented weapons others called impossible, and instead of accepting that power, instead of respecting that brilliance, the council chose fear. They attacked Earth, they burned cities, they stole technology, they erased history, and they told the galaxy humans disappeared. But humans had not disappeared, they had been driven away, exiled, forced into hiding. And now the voice made that truth bleed into every corner of the galaxy. "We did not die, we endured." Every screen showed a faint silhouette, a figure standing in a dark control room, face hidden, armor reflecting cold blue light. No name, no emotion, no weakness. Behind the silence there was only power. The voice spoke again: "Railguns were phase 1. A chill spread through every world. Railguns were already beyond anything the galaxy understood. If that was phase 1, then what came next? Fear turned into dread, and the voice answered before anyone could ask. Phase 2 is something you feared so much you banned it before you even understood it. Teleportation." The chamber exploded with panic. Leaders shouted that teleportation was impossible, illegal, forbidden, unstable. But the voice spoke over them, calm like a judge: "You feared what you could not control." The younger species did not understand, the older ones did, because they remembered the secret records. The council hid records about early human experiments, about breakthroughs no alien scientist could match about humans, nearly unlocking instant movement across space, something no empire dared attempt, but the council buried it, erased it, sealed it away, and told everyone it was too dangerous. Now that danger was back, the voice spoke again with quiet fury. You stole our technology, you declared it illegal, you called it forbidden, but it was never yours to ban. Whispers spread through the chamber like ghosts. Could humans really have invented teleportation? First, could they have mastered it before the council even existed? One of the oldest council elders started shaking his head, eyes wide with guilt, because he remembered the truth. Humans had been ahead, far ahead, so ahead that the council decided to destroy them before they could rise. The voice grew sharper. You called us extinct, but extinction is not silence, extinction is surrender, and humans never surrendered. The silhouette leaned closer into the light, revealing only a glint of human eyes, cold, steady, focused, and in that moment every alien watching felt something they never expected, not just fear but shame, because humanity's voice did not sound like a conqueror, it sounded like someone who had been betrayed, broken, hunted, and forced to survive alone for centuries. The pain in that silence was heavier than war. The voice spoke slower now, almost like a wound reopening. We built railguns, you mocked. We built teleportation, you banned. We built our future, and you tried to kill it, but we learned something in the dark. We learned patience, we learned silence, we learned strength, not fire strength, but unbreakable strength, the kind that grows when everything else is taken away, the kind that turns fear into purpose, the kind that turns pain into power. As the voice spoke, the warship began to release small pulses of light, tiny flickers across its hull like stars waking up. Scanners tried to read the energy, but failed. It was beyond their understanding, beyond their science. The voice whispered, and we did not return to negotiate, we returned to show truth. The screens zoomed in on the hull, words glowing brighter, property of Earth, and beneath it new words slowly lit up. Phase 2 active. The council gasped, soldiers screamed, fleet scrambled, trying to form defensive lines, but they were too slow, too small, too weak. Then, without a single ship moving, without any engine firing, without any warning, human soldiers appeared inside the capital station, black armored figures standing perfectly still, helmets reflecting cold steel. They did not break doors, they did not arrive in transports, they simply appeared, teleported directly into the council's heart. No sound, no flash, no footsteps, just existence. The chamber dropped into pure terror. Guards raised weapons, hands shaking, voices cracking, but the humans did not attack, they did not speak, they just stood like statues, unmovable, unstoppable, undeniable. The council leader fell to his knees, whispering, this is impossible, but existence itself had already proven him wrong. A single human stepped forward. Slow, steady, controlled, and lifted one hand, placing a small device on the floor. It flickered and projected a hologram of Earth, a blue shining world, brighter, stronger, alive. The human voice returned, softer now but heavier than a blade. We survived, we rebuilt, we remembered. You tried to erase us, but we remember everything. And that sentence cut deeper than any weapon, because it carried centuries of loss, centuries of silence, centuries of rage, contained and controlled. Until this moment, another pulse shook the station. Every alien flinched, expecting death, but no attack came. Instead, the voice delivered the final blow. This is not war, this is truth, and when truth arrives, glory dies. The message ended. The screens went black, the soldiers vanished, the warship stayed silent, but the damage was done. The council's pride shattered, their power cracked, their fear exposed, because now the galaxy knew humans were not returning as victims, humans were returning as something far more terrifying, survivors. And the survivors had come to finish what history tried to bury, and this was only phase 2. The real shock had not even begun yet. The chamber was still shaking from the message when the true horror began, because no one had time to breathe, no one had time to think, no one had time to blink. The air inside the council's capital station changed. It felt heavier, colder, sharper, like the atmosphere itself was being pulled apart. Every light dimmed, every shadow stretched, and a low humming vibration crawled through the walls like a heartbeat that did not belong to the station. And then, without any warning, without any ship, without any door, without any signal, space itself split open in front of the council. A thin line of blue light appeared, hanging in midair like a crack in reality, silent, small, harmless looking, but every instinct in every alien body screamed that this was wrong, unnatural, impossible. And then the crack widened, peeling open like a wound in space. And in that moment, teleportation stopped being a myth, stopped being a law, stopped being a fear, and became real. The first humans stepped through, not walking, not emerging, but simply existing, shifting from nowhere into presence. Black armor, smooth, polished, reflecting faint starlight. A helmet with no face, only a dark visor hiding whatever emotion lay beneath. The figure did not speak, did not move, did not even raise a weapon. It just stood calm, steady, unshaken, while the council's guards screamed in panic, pointing guns, shouting commands, hands trembling. But before they could fire, the crack opened wider, and another human appeared, then another, until dozens of armored human soldiers filled the chamber, all silent, all motionless, all terrifying, because they did not arrive through force, they arrived through mastery. They had unlocked movement the council had sworn was impossible, movement that broke every law, every limit, every rule the galaxy ever knew. The guards staggered backward, afraid to breathe, because these soldiers did not look like invaders, they looked like judgment, physical embodiments of everything the council buried, every crime, every lie, every betrayal. And the emotional weight of that truth crushed everyone in the room. The Supreme Chancellor's lips trembled as he whispered, How are they inside? We have shields, we have barriers, we have lockdown protocols. But the answer was plain in the silence. None of those things mattered anymore, because shields stop ships, not space itself. Barriers stop armies, not physics. Rewritten locks stop doors, not reality. And humanity had rewritten reality. The teleport crack behind the soldiers sealed shut, leaving no trace, no portal, no machine, no energy trail, nothing to study, nothing to reverse, nothing to stop. It was as if the humans walked across the universe like it was a single room. One of the younger council members collapsed, clutching his chest, eyes wide with terror, saying, They can appear anywhere, they can take any planet, any throne, any leader. We cannot stop them. Another elder shook violently as tears fell down his wrinkled face, whispering, We feared this since the beginning, because long ago, before the purge, before the lies, before the erasure, the council knew humans were close, too close, dangerously close to teleportation, closer than any species ever would be. The council did not ban teleportation because it was unstable. They banned it because humans invented it first, and that guilt sat like a knife in every heart. Now the lead human stepped forward, slow, heavy footsteps echoing like death, approaching. 1 step, 2 steps. The council guards froze, guns shaking, fingers locked, because every instinct told them this was not a soldier, this was a message. The human stopped just a few feet away from the council table, then lifted a small object from his belt, a tiny metallic cube, smooth, black, featureless, the size of a stone, and placed it gently on the floor. The moment it touched the ground, the cube lit up, glowing blue, and a projection burst upward, forming a hologram, not of war, not of weapons, but of Earth, spinning calm, peaceful, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, and the entire chamber gasped, because Earth was supposed to be ash, burned, erased, destroyed, nothing left, nothing alive. But here it was, alive, thriving, blooming with light, more beautiful than any memory, more powerful than any myth. And the emotional hit was devastating, because the council spent centuries telling the galaxy Earth was gone, while Earth had survived, grown, rebuilt without them, because of them, against them. The hologram zoomed in, showing cities shining brighter than alien capitals, towers of metal and glass, floating platforms, bridges suspended in air, energy fields glowing like dawn, technology beyond anything the council possessed. It was proof that humans did not only survive, they evolved, they surpassed, they transcended, and the silent soldiers standing around the chamber were living proof of that evolution. Every alien leader felt something break inside their chest, a deep shame, a heavy grief, because they finally understood the true horror. The council did not just fear humans, they feared what humans could become if left unchained, and that fear had now come true. The soldier lifted his head, visor reflecting light, and the silence spoke louder than any words. Humanity had returned, not out of hatred, not out of chaos, but out of truth, out of memory, out of justice. But beneath that truth was pain, centuries of pain, the pain of betrayal, exile, loss, silence, the kind of pain that doesn't scream, the kind that becomes steel and strength. Then the cube pulsed brighter, and a familiar voice echoed through the chamber, the same calm human voice from before, but now softer, colder, more personal. We are inside your walls, because walls cannot hold truth. We stand on your floors, because ground cannot hide guilt. We do not need ships to reach your heart, because you gave us reason to walk through space itself. And the weight of those words crushed the room. Every guard lowered their weapons, not by command, but by instinct, because they knew this was bigger than war, bigger than weapons, bigger than species. This was history returning to collect what it was owed. The hologram shifted, showing a single line of text, Phase 2 complete, and then another line, Phase 3 prepared. The Chancellor's voice cracked, Who are you? What do you want? The answer was a whisper that felt like thunder, justice. And as the hologram faded, as the cube dimmed, as the soldiers stood silent, one truth carved itself into every soul: teleportation was no longer forbidden, no longer lost, no longer myth. Teleportation belonged to humanity, and now humanity belonged everywhere. And that realization destroyed the last illusion of safety, because the council finally understood there was no fortress left, no distance left, no escape left. Humanity could be anywhere at any time, and the galaxy would never sleep again, because the hunters had stepped into the room, and they were not leaving until the past was paid in full. And this was only the opening breath of Phase 3. The real reckoning was still waiting just beyond the next heartbeat. The word justice hung in the air like a blade, and every heartbeat in the chamber felt slower, heavier, harder, because justice did not sound like mercy, it sounded like consequence. Centuries of consequence, and the council, who once ruled like gods, now sat trembling like criminals. The human soldiers did not move, did not speak, did not demand. They simply existed in the room as living reminders that the galaxy had changed forever. Panic spread through the capital station like wildfire. Voices cracked, orders tangled, fear spiraled. Leaders who once spoke with pride now stuttered like broken machines. One demanded negotiations, another begged for peace, another whispered surrender, but none of them knew who to talk to, because the humans refused to acknowledge their authority, refused to see them as rulers, refused to bow. The Supreme Chancellor tried to stand, but his legs shook uncontrollably, his breath shallow, eyes glossy with shock, because he could feel it, the weight of every lie, every erased record, every forbidden truth crushing down. And he knew the council's power was not slipping, it was already gone outside the station. Fleets that once formed the mightiest arm of the galaxy were falling apart, soldiers crying, captains abandoning posts, ships drifting out of formation because their weapons were useless, their engines trapped, their systems distorted, every defense they trusted, every shield they worshipped, every law they enforced meant nothing against the silent human ship drifting like a dark moon of judgment. Nearby some pilots attempted to flee, engines roaring in desperation, but the moment they tried to break formation their controls locked in. Their ships froze again. As if invisible chains held them in place, terror hit them like fire because running from humanity was impossible. They were trapped not by force but by helplessness. Inside the chamber the younger leaders turned on the older ones, shouting, "You lied to us, you said humans were extinct, you said they were weak, you said we were safe." But the elders could not answer. They stared at the floor, tears clinging to their eyes because they remembered the day the council voted to purge humans. They remembered the fear, the jealousy, the hunger for control. They remembered destroying a species not because humans were dangerous but because humans were unstoppable. They remembered the guilt they buried, and now it was rising like a tidal wave. The chancellor slammed his fist on the table, voice breaking. "We must fight, we must take back control." But the words sounded pathetic, weak, hollow, because how do you fight someone who can appear anywhere, who can teleport into your veins, who can destroy fleets without lifting a finger? How do you win against a force that does not fear you? The guards tried to take positions, forming lines, guns shaking, fingers trembling, but their eyes betrayed the truth. They were not preparing for battle, they were preparing for death. Fear thickened the air, suffocating the room. One leader fainted, another screamed, another curled into a corner, sobbing like a child. The council was collapsing not from weapons but from terror, their pride shattered, their dignity rotting. Their unity crumbling. The galaxy's greatest rulers had become a broken assembly of frightened beings. Broadcast screens across thousands of planets captured it all. Civilians watched their leaders fall apart, watched the mighty council tremble, watched the truth unfold that the empire they trusted was a lie built on fear of one species, and that species had returned not as slaves, not as subjects, but as the storm that breaks empires. Riots exploded across cities, worlds turned to chaos, citizens losing faith, soldiers refusing orders, governments cracking under the pressure. Every species felt the shift, the end of an era, the end of the council's glory, and the beginning of something darker, something unknown. The chancellor finally dropped to his knees, shaking head, bowed, voice barely a whisper. "What do you want from us?" Silence answered him, silence colder than death, because humans had not set demands, had not issued terms, had not claimed territory. They had done nothing except exist, and existing was enough to destroy the council's entire foundation, because their power was never real, their rule was never secure, their strength was always borrowed from fear, and now fear belonged to humans. The chamber lights flickered again, screens flashed a new message. Phase 3 initiated, alarms blared, systems glitched, the room shook slightly like a distant thunder approaching. Panic roared through the hall. What is Phase 3? What are they planning? What will they do? But deep inside every heart the real fear whispered. Phase 3 was not attack, Phase 3 was revelation. The truth. Humans had promised the truth, the council hid the truth. Everyone feared. The emotional weight became unbearable, because justice was not just punishment, justice was exposure, and exposure would destroy everything. Suddenly the warship outside began to move, not fast, not aggressive, just a slow, ominous rotation. Cannons shifting, railgun aligning toward the capital station again, weapons charging with a low humming vibration. But this time there was something different, something even more terrifying. The railgun was not glowing for a single precise shot. It was building power, building energy, building destruction. The council leaders screamed, "Shields, shields, shields," but the station's shields flickered, dead, useless, powerless, like everything else. Stunned voices trembled. Will they destroy us? Will they wipe us out? Will this be the end? But the truth was worse than destruction. Death would have been mercy. The humans were not here to end the council quickly, they were here to end the council completely. Their power, their history, their authority, their legacy. Humanity did not want bodies, they wanted collapse, and the collapse had already begun. The chancellor covered his face, sobbing, whispering, "We are finished." And for the first time in all recorded history, the Galactic Council, the proud ruling force of thousands of worlds, finally understood what it felt like to lose everything, not through war, not through fire, but through fear. Because fear was the weapon humanity wielded without firing a single shot, and as Phase 3 began the council fell apart, shattered, broken, defeated long before the first beam of destruction ever touched them, and everyone knew the old galaxy was gone and a new one was rising with humanity at its center. Humanity was no longer the hunted, humanity was the reckoning, and this reckoning was only getting started. The alarms kept screaming, but no one listened because the louder sound was inside every mind, the pounding realization that everything they believed, everything they were taught, everything the council preached for centuries was a lie. The fear of death was heavy, but the fear of truth was heavier, and that truth was about to break open like a wound. The hologram cube on the floor flickered back to life, its blue glow expanding until it swallowed the chamber in cold light. Every leader shielded their eyes, trembling. The human voice returned, softer, slower, deeper, like someone unsealing a Coffin, you think this began today, but your crime began long before, your fear began long before, your lies began long before, and the hologram shifted, showing stars, constellations, timelines, dates stretching thousands of years backward. Then the image focused on a single blue planet, Earth, young, bright, full of life, cities, rising technology, booming, humans building faster than any species had ever built before. In the chamber a gasp rippled through the council. Some stared in awe, some in horror, because they never saw Earth alive, they only saw it in forbidden records. As Ash the voice continued, humans did not build weapons to conquer, we built to survive, we built to explore, we built to reach the stars. And the hologram showed humans smiling, working together, launching ships, building railguns, testing teleportation prototypes, children watching rockets lift into the sky, hope shining in their eyes. And for a moment the chamber felt something no one expected: sadness, empathy, guilt, because these were not monsters, these were dreamers, inventors, believers. Then the image changed, growing darker. It showed council ships entering Earth's orbit, older, primitive versions of their current fleets, but still armed, still armored, still deadly. They came not with peace, not with alliance, not with respect, but with fear, pure fear, because humans were advancing too fast. The older council elders in the room began shaking, heads lowered, eyes full of shame, because they remembered the truth. The council did not fear human violence, they feared human progress, they feared human genius, they feared a future where humans would surpass them. And the voice carved that truth into the room. You did not ban teleportation because it was unstable, you banned it because it was ours. You did not ban railguns because they were dangerous, you banned them because they were human. The hologram shifted again, showing documents, votes, secret meetings, leaders arguing, whispering that humans were becoming too powerful, that humans might challenge authority, might rewrite the balance, might one day rule. And instead of partnership, instead of cooperation, the council chose erasure. The projection showed fire raining on Earth, cities burning, screams echoing, mothers running with children, soldiers fighting till their last breath, humanity standing against an armada alone and losing. The chamber fell silent, no one breathed, because they were watching genocide, the genocide they never learned about, never questioned, never doubted. The chancellor covered his mouth, tears falling as he whispered, we did this, we killed them. But the voice answered cold, you tried. The hologram then showed a smaller fleet, hidden ships leaving Earth, carrying survivors fleeing through darkness into uncharted space, terrified, desperate, homeless, but alive. The humans did not die, the humans endured, and that endurance hurt more than any weapon, because survival was humanity's revenge. The projection showed humans landing on a barren world, building from nothing, forging new metals, inventing impossible machines, railguns that shattered asteroids, teleportation that bent space. The humans laughing, crying, bleeding, working, never giving up, never forgetting, never forgiving. Centuries of exile turned into centuries of evolution. The voice trembled not with weakness but with fury, forged into steel. We survived without sunlight, we built without resources, we advanced without allies, we carried our dead and turned their memory into power. And that line punched every soul in the room, because it was not cruelty speaking, it was pain, pain sharpened into purpose. The hologram zoomed in on a single object, a massive construct, deep underground, glowing with energy, the first true teleporter. Humans completed it decades after the purge. The council had no idea. They thought humans vanished, they celebrated, erased records, rewrote history, called humans a myth, called themselves saviors, but in reality they were executioners and cowards. The projection displayed a final secret record, a council document from millennia ago, stamped with blood-red authority: do not speak of Earth, do not speak of humans. Destroy all knowledge. The younger leaders stared in betrayal, eyes wide, mouths shaking. You hid this from us, you lied to us. And the elders broke down sobbing, because they had carried that sin for too long, a sin they hoped would stay buried forever. But truth had claws, and humanity dragged it back into the light. The voice grew steady again, we did not return to conquer, we returned because truth demands a witness. And now you have seen what you did and what we became without you. The hologram shifted to a final image, Earth once again, but this time not burning, not broken, shining, strong, fleets orbiting, cities in the sky, a civilization reborn. And the sentence carved itself into every heart: humanity did not rise because of you, humanity rose in spite of you. The weight of that truth shattered whatever courage remained in the council, because they realized the greatest fear was not that humans returned angry, the greatest fear was that humans returned justified. The voice delivered the final cut: you feared our strength, but our true power was never our weapons. Our true power was that we never stopped. And that was the moment the council understood the real nightmare. They did not create a destroyed species, they created a perfected one, a species hardened by loss, sharpened by exile, fueled by memory, and now standing unstoppable. And as the hologram faded, as the chamber dimmed, as silence reclaimed the air, one truth remained unshakable, unescapable, unforgiving: humanity did not come back seeking war, humanity came back as the living proof that the council's greatest crime could not kill the one thing stronger than fear: survival. And the survivors were done hiding now. Phase 4 waited in the dark, and the galaxy would not survive its meaning without trembling first. Silence drowned the chamber after the truth ended. Not a single leader spoke, not a single guard breathed, not a single thought felt safe, because the weight of history was no longer a story, it was a sentence. The council was no longer a government, it was a crime scene, and every soul inside could feel the judgment building like a storm. Then the station trembled, a deep low vibration rolling through the walls like the universe itself had taken a breath. Screens flickered, alarms tried to activate but failed, systems glitched and died one by one, lights dimmed until only a faint red glow pulsed across the room like a heartbeat, the heartbeat of something coming, something unstoppable. The human soldiers still stood silent, motionless, but now their visors glowed faint blue, synchronized, pulsing with the stations, shaking like they were linked to something bigger, something hidden, something waiting. The Supreme Chancellor clutched the edge of the table, voice cracking. What is Phase 4, but no answer came, only the sound of fear spreading through bones. Everyone felt it, not just danger but inevitability, the sense that nothing they did mattered now because humanity had already decided the fate of the council. Then outside the massive viewport something moved. The black warship that had remained still for so long began to shift, its hull unfolding like metal wings, opening, plates sliding apart, revealing enormous arrays and deep glowing channels of energy. The railgun at its core expanded, pulling in power from a source no scanner could read. The council screamed, fire, 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 do something, but the fleets outside were broken, engines trapped, weapons dead, minds shattered. They watched helplessly as the warship aimed directly at the capital station again. But this time the glow was not sharp, not precise, not targeted, it was massive, wide, consuming, like the ship wasn't preparing to fire a single shot, but something far bigger. One leader sobbed, they are going to destroy us. They are going to wipe us out. But deep inside every heart another truth whispered, destroying the station was not the point. Humanity did not come to kill, they came to break, and break meant something far more terrifying than death. Suddenly the entire station flashed white, a blinding pulse of light swallowed the chamber. Every alien shielded their eyes, screaming, thinking this was the end, thinking they were vaporizing, thinking they were dying. But when the light faded they were still alive. The walls were intact, the air still breathable, the soldiers still present, but something was wrong, terribly wrong, because the stars outside were gone. The blue star they orbited was gone, the surrounding fleets gone, the capital system gone, replaced by a completely different sky, new constellations, new space, unfamiliar, dark, cold, silent. The Chancellor's voice shattered, where are we? Where did they take us? A screen flickered on, showing coordinates that made every scientist collapse in disbelief. The station had been teleported not meters, not miles, but across the galaxy. Impossible, illegal, unimaginable. The council's heart ripped from its throne room and thrown somewhere unknown, and before anyone could breathe the hologram cube reignited, projecting a final image, Earth not distant but massive, filling the entire viewport, blue oceans, gleaming continents, shining defense fleets circling like guardians of a reborn empire. The capital station was now in orbit around Earth, powerless, exposed, surrounded by thousands of human warships, black armored giants, railguns, charged teleport arrays glowing like constellations, every ship larger than anything the council ever built, every ship aimed directly at them, and the emotional blow hit harder than any weapon because the symbol was undeniable. The council was no longer above the galaxy, they were beneath humanity. Now humanity sat on the throne, humanity had taken the center, humanity had pulled the rulers to the world. They tried to destroy the Chancellor. Fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering, no, 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 this cannot be Earth, we burned Earth, we ended Earth. But Earth stood before them, more alive than any world. They ruled, more powerful than any empire they built, more magnificent than any future they imagined. And the human voice returned, calm, echoing through the chamber, not angry, not cruel, but absolute. Your council is over, your rule is finished, your lies have died in their birthplace. You tried to erase us, so we brought you here to remember. Earth is where your crime began, Earth is where your glory ends. Every leader broke down, some begging forgiveness, some wailing, some collapsing lifeless with shock. Because they could feel it, the end of their era, the death of their power, the collapse of their legacy. And yet the humans did not fire, did not invade, did not slaughter. They simply surrounded the station like silent judges waiting for one thing, acknowledgement. Because the true final shock was not destruction, the true final shock was humiliation. The council did not fall in flames, they fell in truth. They were not defeated by war, they were defeated by their own history. Earth had risen while they decayed, Earth had grown while they stagnated, Earth had survived while they lied. And now the galaxy watched the broadcast of the council kneeling in front of the planet they once tried to burn, millions of worlds seeing the rulers break, seeing pride collapse, seeing justice turn into reality. And the emotional weight crushed every witness, because they all knew this moment was the line between two eras, the old galaxy ruled by fear and the new galaxy ruled by those who survived. Fear humanity. The human voice delivered one last sentence that carved itself into the bones of the universe. Glory is not won by power, glory is earned by survival, and humanity survived you. And as the warships held formation, silent, relentless, unblinking, the council realized the most terrifying truth of all: humans did not need to destroy them, they already had an Earth waited for Phase 5, ready to decide what a broken galaxy looked like under the eyes of the species it abandoned. The reckoning was not over, it was only about to begin. The chamber was silent, but it was not the silence of peace, it was the silence of defeat, the silence of a world realizing it no longer belonged to itself. The council sat broken knees on the floor, tears on faces, hands shaking like children lost in a storm, because everything they ever knew, every law, every weapon, every victory, every bit of pride had been stripped away and laid bare before the one truth they feared most. Humanity had risen higher than anyone, and they had brought the galaxy's rulers to the doorstep of their own crime. Earth loomed outside the viewport, huge, breathtaking, powerful, shining like a world forged from pain and rebirth, its oceans calm, its continents glowing, its fleets surrounding the station like a crown of black steel, and every leader could feel it in their bones. Earth was no longer a memory, Earth was the center, Earth was the future, Earth was the throne. The human soldiers inside the chamber finally moved just a single step forward, all at once. Boots striking the floor like a heartbeat of destiny, and every alien flinched because their presence alone felt like judgment. Then the air shifted, a soft hum filled the room, not frightening, not loud, but ancient, like the sound of history clicking into place. Another hologram formed, but this time it was not Earth's past or humanity's suffering, it was the Galactic Council's own symbol, shattering into dust, dissolving into nothingness. The emblem that once controlled thousands of worlds disappeared in front of their eyes, gone, erased like they once tried to erase humans. The human voice returned, steady, calm, but heavy with something deeper than anger, something colder than revenge. Justice fulfilled, your rule is over, your authority dissolved, your throne returned to the world you feared. And every word fell like a stone on the council's hearts, crushing any last piece of pride. But beneath that crushing weight something else stirred, pain, regret, guilt, because they finally felt what humanity felt centuries ago. Powerless, voiceless, hunted, the Chancellor lifted his head, eyes red, voice trembling. What will you do to us? Kill us, conquer us, enslave us? And deep down he believed that was what they deserved, believed death might even be mercy. But the human reply was a whisper that shook every soul. No, humanity does not build empires of chains, we break them. Gasps rippled through the chamber because they expected fire, destruction, revenge, but instead they heard something terrifyingly powerful. Restraint as strength. The council never had. The voice continued, slow, unwavering, we will not erase you as you tried to erase us. We will not burn worlds as you burned ours. Destruction is easy, cowardly, but justice is harder and stronger and longer. It lasts beyond fear, it lasts beyond time. And the station shook again, but gently, not from weapons, but from a massive activation across the human fleets. A signal, a command, a change. Thousands of warships repositioned, forming perfect rings around the station, like a seal, like a boundary, like a new law being drawn across the sky. The hologram shifted now, showing the galaxy map, every council-controlled region glowing red. One by one the red marks disappeared, replaced by blue marks. Earth's color, Earth's control, Earth's rule, not through invasion, but through collapse, because the council had no loyalty left, no faith, no followers. Their worlds had watched their rulers break, had seen their lies exposed, had witnessed their cowardice, and now they turned away, choosing humanity's courage over the council's fear. The galaxy's power shifted in a single breath, not by war but by truth, and the emotional blow crushed whatever hope remained in the council. They were not just defeated, they were irrelevant. The human voice spoke again, this time with a quiet sorrow that pierced deeper than rage. The age of fear is over, the age of silence is over, the age of lies is over. Today marks a new era. No species will rule through terror, no law will erase a name, no ruler will hide the past. Humanity will not be your conqueror, humanity will be your mirror. The council broke completely, some leaders sobbing, some staring blankly, some collapsing as the weight of those words settled into their souls. Because a mirror is worse than a weapon. A mirror forces you to see yourself, forces you to face what you became, forces you to carry your own history. The Chancellor whispered, voice hollow, then, what are we now? And the answer came like a sunrise. Witnesses, you will witness the truth you hid, you will witness the galaxy rise. Without you, you will witness the world you tried to kill become the center of everything. And that was the real punishment, not extinction, but existence. Existence under humanity's shadow, existence under the truth, existence as proof that survival is stronger than power. Outside the viewport, Earth's fleets parted, revealing a single colossal structure orbiting the planet, a shimmering ring of energy, an enormous teleporter unlike anything ever seen, glowing like a halo around Earth. Every scanner in the station went wild trying to understand it, but no system could read it. The technology was too advanced, too elegant, too impossible. The human voice explained calmly, this is the Nexus, the first teleporter large enough to move star systems, worlds, empires. The council reeled back in horror. And or a teleporter capable of transporting planets, entire planets. The galaxy's fate no longer rested on borders, fleets, or weapons, it rested on who controlled space itself, and humanity controlled it now. The voice lowered, almost gentle. We will rebuild the galaxy, not through conquest but through unity, not through fear but through truth. But unity requires memory, and memory requires you to stand where your sin began. That is why you are here. Earth is not your prison, Earth is your mirror. The Chancellor broke into quiet sobs because he finally understood. Humanity did not return to destroy the council, humanity returned to replace what the council failed to be, guardians, not tyrants, builders, not erasers, survivors, not cowards. The voice offered a final sentence, simple, eternal. This galaxy We'll remember humans not because of our weapons but because we refused to die, and that truth echoed like thunder through the chamber, through the station, through every world watching the broadcast, through every heart that ever feared or hoped or dreamed humanity had taken the throne not by fire but by survival. And as the warships held silent formation, as Earth shone like destiny itself, as the Council knelt shattered before the world they once tried to burn, one unshakable truth settled over the galaxy. Humanity was no longer a warning, humanity was the future, and the future had already begun.